Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is day 99, June the 11th, 2017, Sunday. Well, it's a really hot day here in southern Ohio today. It's about 92 degrees, a little bit of humidity going on out there. So just sitting here in the AC, did all my work this morning. So anyway, it's a pretty hot day, but we're all good. Anyway, for day 99, gee whiz, man. It's time flies, doesn't it? So I thought what I wanted to do today was to take a look back. Now that we've kind of gone through the Comey hearings, we've been through the Brennan hearings, we've had Clapper, we've had Rogers, we've seen all these guys multiple times, we've had the media onslaught. In fact, in the past year, if we just think about it, since I started doing my tower videos, TowerGate videos, we've seen a lot of things just in the past length of time that I started doing these videos, 99 days into it. So now that we're 99 days into it, I just want to do a quick review of what we have learned so far. We've been through the election, we've been through all the investigations and hearings in Congress, we've seen the media frenzy, who've gotten everything wrong at this point, from the election to all the allegations that they've made, and this is either due to incompetence or lies, bias. So, let's go ahead and do a quick review of what we've learned. Number one, we have learned Trump was never under investigation. Never. Number two, Trump did not obstruct justice. He did not. But we've recently learned that Loretta Lynch may have. Number three, Trump did not collude with Russia. This is a fact. Trump did not collude with Russia. Number four, Russia did not alter the election. They had no impact on the election. That comes straight from Admiral Rogers, Clapper, and even Comey himself. Now, they all continue to say that they're pretty darn sure that Russia was involved in trying to do things in our elections. In fact, James Comey said he believes 100% that they were involved in all that, but they have yet to produce a single bit of information. When Comey's pressed on the point, the only thing that he can really bring up is that there was a lot of trolls out there, and that RT television or RT media was propagating Russian propaganda, notwithstanding the fact that Russia today reaches about 1% of the U.S. population who actually watch that channel compared to all the other hordes of mainstream media propaganda. Number five, Loretta Lynch pressured Comey to cover for Hillary Clinton. Number six, despite laying out the case for criminal prosecution, as we just learned in the recent hearings, James Comey chose not to pursue it. And of course, that's not the role of the FBI director. It's only the role of the FBI director to do the investigation and then present his findings to the Department of Justice so that they can make a decision whether or not there are prosecutorial crimes. But James Comey, playing God, decided he would make that decision for us. And in fact, after laying out the case against Hillary, that any prosecutor could have closed the deal, slam dunk, James Comey said no reasonable prosecutor would pursue the case. A big fat cop-out. James Comey basically chose not to pursue it because he's a sissy. Next, James Comey leaked his own memo, and he passed it on to a friend so that he would leak it to the New York Times, hoping it would lead to an independent counselor being appointed, and hoping that would lead to the ouster of the president. That's what James Comey did. That's what we've learned. Fact. He stated it under oath, admitted it right there in front of everybody. Boy, oh boy. Next, the media has been lying and making up things. They've been citing unnamed sources, and they've found to always be wrong about everything. Whether or not this is just their incompetence or their bias is up for you to decide. Next, the Russian collusion theory is dead. We can now safely say that. There's not a shred of evidence that has been shown that the Russians or anyone else hacked the DNC and the DCCC. The overwhelming circumstantial evidence, however, and logic suggest that it was Seth Rich that leaked the emails to WikiLeaks or to a third party who then gave them to WikiLeaks, and that it was in fact a leak, not a hack. This is what we've learned. We have also learned that Susan Rice, Samantha Power, John Brennan, and others were involved in a plot to surveil Donald Trump and his associates for political reasons. Then they unmasked and then leaked the intelligence, the intel that they unmasked and surveilled on Trump. They leaked that out throughout the media. We also learned that James Comey lied about leaking classified information. He was just in a Senate hearing a couple of weeks ago and he said he's never leaked anything. He's in fact even signed on a disclosure agreement that he would never leak anything. So he lied on his disclosure agreement because now he admits under oath himself that he leaked his own memo, which means he was lying 3 weeks ago when he testified in front of the Senate. And he did all this to try to bring down the president. It's very, very close to sedition. But that is what we've learned from James Comey. We've also learned that James Comey is a sissy. He's a candy ass. And I don't like candy ass men. Nothing personal if you're a candy ass. But from all this, what can we ascertain from all these facts that we now have? What we can ultimately have learned is that the intel community, the media, the Obama administration, many Republicans, anti-Trumpers, members of the deep state, leaders of foreign nations, the United Nations, the globalists, and all their friends, the entire cabal, was working in a coordinated effort to destroy the presidential candidacy of Donald Trump, and once elected, to destroy his presidency. And it continues to this day. This is what we have learned in the past 99 days. There's much, much more to be learned. Again, we will now start moving towards the real issue of surveillance, unmasking, the larger issue of surveillance by the intelligence communities, and whether or not this was a gigantic plan. Now, I compare, for those of you who are new to my YouTube videos, and you know I call my segments TowerGate, it's because when Donald Trump sent out the tweet, the first thing I thought about was the Watergate situation, because there's a lot of similarities. Very briefly, on Watergate, what you had was a group of individuals known as the Plumbers who worked for the Nixon campaign beginning even before 1968, and their primary job initially was to take down the Democratic candidate Edmund Muskie, hoping that that would lead to a victory by George McGovern, because Nixon's people believed they would have a much easier time beating McGovern than they would Muskie. And the Plumbers succeeded in that cause, and George McGovern did end up winning the nomination, the Democratic nomination, and they did destroy the Muskie campaign. But the Plumbers didn't go away. They stuck around. And once once President Nixon got into office, he began working immediately on his re-election. And they began to launch espionage programs against the Democrats. One of those programs was to break into the Watergate Hotel. It wasn't the first break-in they had done. It's just the one that they got caught for. They had conducted several other break-ins that we know about. So the Plumbers break into the Watergate Hotel, the Democratic National Committee headquarters, to plant surveillance listening devices, as well as they were there was equipped with some small cameras to take photographs of documents. There were specific things that they were looking for, and in the process of burglarizing and planting these devices in the Watergate Hotel, they were caught. Once they were caught, the Nixon administration then had to cover up that they knew anything about it. And in the process of the cover-up, Richard Nixon used agencies of the government, including the CIA, the FBI, the IRS, and other agencies, to go after his political enemies, to shut down the investigation, Of course, it played itself out. He eventually appointed his attorney general to fire the special prosecutor, who refused and resigned. He went to the assistant attorney general and asked him to fire Mr. Cox. He refused and he resigned. They went to the number 3 person, Mr. Bork, who agreed, okay, I will fire the special prosecutor, then I'm going to resign. Nixon, we also found out by one of the people inside his information that he had a taping system in the Oval Office. And Nixon believed that those tapes belonged to him. So they sued, went all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court found that the tapes belonged to the people, and therefore Mr. Nixon had to release the tapes. Once he released the tapes clearly showed that shortly after the break-in, the cover-up began. We also have the conversations between Nixon and various other people, Halderman and Dean and various others, talking about ways, and including the FBI and CIA director, where essentially Nixon tried to get the CIA to tell the FBI to back off because it might lead to some things coming out that would be embarrassing to them. He also tried to lean on the FBI to get them to behave in the same manner with the CIA. So what you had was a gigantic cover-up of a crime that was linked to an espionage campaign against the Democrats by Richard Nixon and his campaign to re-elect. What we have here in what I call TowerGate is a very similar situation. We have a presidential administration who I believe the Obama administration used the resources of the government, the intelligence community, and to a larger extent the media, which is almost an extension of the Democratic Party, to try and destroy the candidacy of Donald Trump. They were effective in doing it with Bernie Sanders. They got caught, but it still worked. With Donald Trump, they were unsuccessful. He ended up defeating them anyway. But in the process, it appears that the Obama administration used the resources of the federal government, the intelligence agencies, the media, and apparently every resource and tool that they had to try to destroy the presidency, the candidacy of Donald Trump, and now the presidency. Many Obama appointees are still in the bureaucracies, still trying to take down the president. So what we have is a very similar situation. Hopefully Donald Trump doesn't have any tapes that where he's saying something that could be incriminating. I don't think he does. There may be a taping system. There is a basic taping system for phone calls that come into the White House. The president's calls usually are recorded between him and other agencies of the government. So it's probably likely that there is some sort of a recording or taping system. I think that since the Nixon event, though, I think a lot of presidents and people who know these taping systems exist, I think they're much more careful about the things that they say. And I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if Donald Trump has his own little personal handheld recording device that he probably keeps around him as well. He was a businessman and he probably did record meetings, and of course you can get these little recording devices. I have one. It's about this big, got it at Radio Shack, and it just, can just record conversations. You can hardly even see the thing. So he probably has something like that, but I really don't expect anything to come out of that. Really, I don't think he has any tapes with anything incriminating on them. But anyway, there is a link between the TowerGate and between Watergate in my mind. And of course, as I've said many times, it took 2.5 years for Watergate to play itself out, and it's going to take some time for the TowerGate to shake itself out. But we do know that once Congress comes back in session and they get back to business, the Russia-Trump collusion story is dead. We should be pretty much at the end of that. There's no one really left to testify, no other evidence out there really to uncover. The Russia hacking the election is pretty much a dead issue unless Mr. Mueller stumbles onto something. Remember, we still have Mr. Mueller conducting his investigation. He will find nothing probably, although he is a friend of Mr. Comey, so you never know what could transpire from that. But either way, that is all going on. But what we're going to have, I think, coming up in the future is we're now going to focus on the unmasking, on the surveillance, and whether or not it was politically motivated. There are a few good guys who will ask the right questions, we do have civil lawsuits going on, and we do have some criminal lawsuits going on. So there's a lot of things going on. It's going to take a while for all this to shake itself out, but I'm going to continue to do the videos every day until we get to the bottom of this. And it could be a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road before we finally shake it all out. But I do believe at the end of the day that we will get somewhere near the bottom of this. And I believe that's true because in this particular case, unlike many investigations and unlike many scandals where the administration is in on it along with the Congress and they're all trying to suppress it, I think in this case it's unique because the president is in fact pushing for getting to the bottom of it, and he was in fact the target of the campaign to destroy his candidacy and his presidency. So I don't think Donald Trump's going to let it go. He's still tweeting about it, and there's still plenty of people like myself and other independent journalists like at Circa News, Breitbart, and various other outlets which are following the story, Zero Hedge, other people like that, H.A. Goodman, Stix Hexenheimer, various other people are following up on the story, not letting it go, and a lot of it will have to do with public pressure, because as more information comes out, public pressure will be brought to bear on these people, and it's public pressure can do a very great deal to force the swamp monsters to actually produce something of consequence. And that's generally the only way it gets done, is when there's pressure levied on them, and I believe there'll be a lot of pressure from the administration and hopefully from those of us who are following this story very closely and not letting go of it. So anyway, that's my review of the past 99 days. Now there's a couple new things I just want to touch on here very quickly. There is a recent article that came out in The Guardian 2 days ago, and in this particular article it states that the head of the British spy agency named Robert Hannigan passed materials to then CIA Director John Brennan. This happened in the summer of 2016. Brennan disseminated this information on Capitol Hill, and he briefed the Gang of Eight. The Gang of Eight is a group of 4 Republican and 4 Democratic senators who get regular briefings from the CIA, the NSA, and the various intelligence community. They are the 8 people who generally get these very high-level secure briefings. And of course, Mr. McCain, who passed the dossier to Mr. Comey, and is also a very good friend of all of these people in the deep state, deep security state, the intel community, and the defense industry. Mr. McCain would know all about this, because shortly after Mr. Brennan briefed the Gang of Eight, this information that he briefed them on turned up on the front page of the New York Times. This information was given directly to CIA Director Brennan by Robert Hannigan, head of the British spy agency, GCHQ, and it was passed to Brennan in the summer of 2016. This is a recent story that's just come out of The Guardian, so I expect that we'll be hearing more from Mr. Brennan. And as I've told you, those of you who can go all the way back to the very beginning, the very first few TowerGate videos, I told you at the very beginning that this smelled a lot like a Clinton operation. And keep in mind, Mr. Brennan is a very close associate, part of the Clinton inner circle. Mr. Brennan was hoping to retain his position as a CIA director. And remember, as we're talking about all this, the reason that we're even having these conversations and that this stuff is even being given any attention at all is because Mr. Brennan, the Clintons, the DNC, Obama, and the whole cabal, including the anti-Trumpers, never thought that Hillary would lose. They never thought any of these things would ever have to be dealt with, because they believed that they would win the election and they would be able to put the lid on it. But since they lost, and of course, as we know, Hillary Clinton is rumored to have told someone that if they lose the election, that all their necks would be in a noose. Hillary Clinton obviously knew what she was talking about, because if we continue down this path, we continue to pursue the truth and the evidence of the things that we know did happen and the things that we can assume likely did happen, that are yet to be proven but can be proven, then this will all turn out to be a true revelation by Hillary Clinton, and we'll understand exactly what she was talking about. She's got a lot of problems, as does Mr. Comey. Also, I want to touch briefly on something that Rand Paul said yesterday on Friday on a Fox News interview. Very interesting. I don't know if Senator Paul misspoke. I don't know if he has some information that has never been released. I don't know if he had this information and other people have it and he just slipped up and wasn't supposed to say it, but he did. But either way, Rand Paul, speaking on Fox News, suggested that Susan Rice unmasked the phone call between Flynn and the Russian ambassador. She says, now what Rand Paul said in the interview, he said, well, we know that Susan Rice unmasked the conversation between Flynn and the Russian ambassador, but she denies that she leaked it. But Rand Paul says, but you know what? Maybe she's playing word games. Maybe like James Comey, she's saying, oh, well, I didn't leak it to the media. No. Oh, now I did give it to a friend. I did give it to an associate. I maybe gave it to someone named Mrs. Vargas, who disseminated that information to the media. This is a very interesting point, Senator Rand Paul, because up to this time, no one, I've been all over this, no one has made the accusation, especially to assume it as a known point, that Susan Rice was the one who asked for the unmasking of the call between Flynn and the Russian ambassador. No one's made that claim. We know that Susan Rice has admitted to unmasking. She's never admitted to unmasking the call between Flynn and the Russian ambassador. She's never made that admission, and no one's ever made that. It's been suggested. We've certainly considered it. We certainly believe it's very possible. But Rand Paul said it very matter-of-factly. He said, yeah, well, we know that Susan Rice unmasked the conversation between Flynn and the Russian ambassador, but she claims she didn't leak it. But hey, maybe just like James Comey, maybe she personally didn't give it to the media, but maybe she gave it to someone else to give to the media. So it's almost like he just brushed right over it. He made the statement, in fact, that she unmasked the call between the Russian ambassador and Flynn, and the point he was making was on the leak part, was that, oh, well, that's a fact, but it's, we don't know about the leak. If she leaked it herself, she says she didn't, but maybe she gave it to someone maybe like Mrs. Vargas, who leaked it, or John McCain, or someone like that. Very interesting. I don't know if Rand Paul slipped up, if he misspoke, or if he just disclosed something he wasn't supposed to disclose. But I had to listen to it twice. I'm watching it. I heard what he said, and I said, wait a minute. What did he just say? I back it up. I'll listen again, and sure enough, that's exactly what he said. That's exactly what he said. That's very interesting. We'll have to watch that very closely. So, it is 99 days since Donald Trump tweeted that he was being wiretapped. We've been through all this, the Senate hearings, all the accusations, the unhinged frenzy media, making up lies, citing unnamed sources, trying every type of propaganda they can, trying to do everything they can, and at the end of all these smoke and mirrors, at the end of all of this, these are the things that we have learned, and not a single bit of it does Trump any harm or has been proven to be true, any of the things that they said. The only thing still, the last man standing, the only thing still remaining to be understood and proven is whether or not there was, well, we know for a fact there was surveillance on Trump and his associates, as well as 20 million other Americans, including Supreme Court judges and various other citizens. We already know all that. That's going to come out in criminal court very soon, based on the lawsuit by Mr. Montgomery, for which Mr. Comey is a criminal defendant. So we do know that. We do know there was unmasking. We do know there was surveillance. We do know there were investigations. Mr. Manafort, Mr. Stone, and what's his name? The other guy, Carter Page. And we have much more to learn as we continue to dig into this story, because it's now the only story left to talk about. So as these future hearings happen in Congress, they won't be spending very much time talking about Trump collusion. They won't be spending very much time talking about Russia hacking the election. I think that the two major issues that we'll be dealing with are going to be the surveillance, and we still have that Seth Rich thing out there, which is not going away. And I think it will be proven at the end of the day that me and various other people, many of you, will be vindicated in our belief that Seth Rich was the man who leaked that information to WikiLeaks, and there were never any Russian involvement at all. It was all a big, fat lie. One last thing. It's a very little thing, but it's significant. It appears that as I told you a couple days ago, there's no loyalty in Washington, D.C. No loyalty at all. Not amongst friends, not amongst people, party members, or anything like that. People in Washington, D.C. are all about, number one, protecting their own heinies, protecting their own necks. And so we have learned in the last 24 hours that Dianne Feinstein, turn in your guns, Mr. and Mrs. America Feinstein, has now stated that based on the Comey revelations in the hearings, she believes that Loretta Lynch should be brought in to testify and explain herself. This is Dianne Feinstein, a hardcore liberal Democrat lefty, a hardcore entrenched member of that party, very closely connected to the Clintons, the Obamas, and the whole cabal. Even she is now saying that Loretta Lynch must come in and answer some questions. When you got people of your own party, especially heavy hitters like Mrs. Turn in your guns, Mr. and Mrs. America Feinstein, when you got her turning her guns on you, you got big problems. This tells you right now that we have two major scapegoats. One is James Comey. He knows that they're going to try to hang every bit of this on him, and you can see him maneuvering through the minefield to try to protect his neck. You can now see that Susan Rice and Loretta Lynch may be thrown under the bus as well. These Democratic senators, these politicians in Washington, are not going to fall on the sword for anybody. Not for Susan Rice, not for anybody. Maybe the president, maybe Obama, but it'll never make it that high. But I'm telling you, there's no such thing as loyalty in Washington, D.C. These people will protect their own necks. They will throw their own mother under the bus to save their political careers. So this is a very interesting thing, and I think that you are going to hear more and more of this as we begin to move forward on the thing that actually deserves consideration, investigation, and ultimately deserves to be known by the public at large about how deep and wide this surveillance goes. It's not just on Trump and his team. It's on you, it's on me, it's on anyone who could possibly do harm to some powerful politician or rich guy or government bureau. No one is safe in this particular environment. We're all possible targets. It's very, very dangerous. And this is why our founding fathers created the Fourth Amendment. This is why we go through all these processes. And of course we do have both Lindsey Graham, Rand Paul, we have Trey Gowdy and others stating that they are not going to reauthorize the FISA court later this summer until they get to the bottom of what's been going on in the intelligence community, and it'll be interesting to see how everything plays out. So that's day 99, TowerGate, June the 11th, 2017, Sunday. I'll be back with a little bit different thing for day 100, to celebrate day 100. All right, so we'll see you back here, and that video will come out tomorrow morning, on Monday morning. So I should be back on my regular schedule, and expect my videos this week to be coming out in the morning like they should, Monday through Friday. And of course this is a weekend video, so they come out in the evening. Alrighty, thank you, you guys. I appreciate your comments. And by the way, yeah, Jarhead made a comment that I think was really good that I didn't actually touch on, that I think is a very good point. Just to end here, Jarhead suggested that Comey might be seeking some sort of immunity. I think it's likely that he might try to seek immunity, but I don't really think that he'll be able to get it, because I don't know who Comey could give up. You know, he only answered to two people really, and that was Loretta Lynch, and they don't need Comey to give up Loretta Lynch. They've already got her in a noose if they want her. and Obama, which he's not going to do. Obama and the machine would destroy James Comey. You try to do something like that, and you will meet the real nasty people at that point. And I think he understands that. I think the best James Comey can hope for is a plea deal to stay out of prison. I think he ultimately is certainly going to be publicly, personally, professionally destroyed at the end of all the revelations that we're going to come to know in the months to come. Alrighty, thank you for tuning in, guys. Have a good night.